post-Soviet countries, it's a very important factor that helped us to start thinking about very important things. And my second question to colleague Ho-Fung, Burma or Myanmar is a symptom, I think, for Chinese policies in politics, and it's a fact that should be seriously analyzed. Do you think that Burma is going really to go away from cooperation with China, and is it application of a new American policy of recognizing serious democratic changes in the countries on the basis of only one factor, going away from China or going away from cooperation with Russia, for example, with geopolitical competitors?
There's a question right here.
This is a question for Mahmoud. Thank you for your presentation. Okay, Mamdouh. Thank you very much for your presentation on the situation in Egypt. I have a concern for the minorities in Egypt and across the Arab world. So, what do you think about the coming to the power of the Islamists in Egypt of the implications? Because in Iraq, in Afghanistan, and in Libya, after the installation of these new regimes, religious minorities, especially the Christians, are in a very perilous situation. So, what do you think about the situation in Egypt and other, of course, not only Christians but females and so on? So, what do you think about this? Thank you.
Thank you for a great panel. I have two small comments. One is the way China is, and emerging powers, but particularly China, is perceived in the African context. That more and more it is understood that China is a global player, it's a global power, right? It's playing at every level. But Chinese interventions in Africa, the investments and the trade and so on, have created policy space. In other words, there is maybe a smaller room for maneuver that exists at the level of the African policymakers, and I think that's important to bear in mind as well, so that whatever the concerns from the other end are, seen from the African point of view, there are also some possibilities that do exist, and the question often is, from the African side, there is no strategy, there is no global strategy for engaging with China, and I think there is something to sort out at that level. Egypt and North Africa more generally, I wonder the extent to which the progressive forces were prepared for what happened. Because we have seen the Islamists all across North Africa, Morocco, Tunisia, Libya, Algeria, Egypt. The Islamists have taken the majority in all these cases. To what extent were the progressive forces prepared for the kind of transformations? Because they've been overtaken completely by what is going on there now.
Is there anyone else? Yeah. Okay, one more.
我有一个问题问一下孔高峰博士。前天厄瓜多尔的前部长先生他讲过，上个世纪60年代以后，北方国家的产业资本的利用率是下降，有一个危机。后来在新自由主义的政策主导下，他们把产业可能都转移到一些新兴国家，使得这个利用率有很大的回升。但是北方国家它又发成一个金融资本主义国家，这是前天徐宇生教授他所讲的。那么这个北方的金融资本主义国家正在经历着危机，从新的危机到主权债务危机。他说可能下一步是会衍生为货币危机。但他最后的结论是说，发展中国家会受害。但是我想问您的是，如果这个核心的北方国家 它货币危机会不会最终会导致您在图上所表示的那样一个全球生产体系的解体？因为我是觉得，和北方核心国家的货币危机，如果它不能有足够的消费保证的话，这个生产体系的产业资本是不能有利润的。如果它没有利润，这个体系解体的话，我觉得，是不是可以为我们世界公共无产阶级的革命有一个促进作用？谢谢。
Shall we start this way and move down? Okay. President.
Right, thank you. The Center for African Studies have we call PKU, Peking University Afro Inform. It's a weekly electronic news week. And on one side, state criticism towards the China's. I said China has everything in Africa except a strategy. And that's a criticism and caused a lot of response from the readers, also from the government. But anyway, what I want to say, response to my Gambian friend is that so far there are some policies, country policies, but from my view, there is no strategy yet. First, I criticize severely the mode of development in China in terms of energy consumption, all right? Because it consumes much more energy than other developed countries. And that's a very serious problem. And second is there are a lot of problems in terms of China's engagement in Africa. I don't think I have time to elaborate here, but I mentioned some in my speech. And the third point is that there are different responses from Africa. For example, I was in Hong Kong, I think in 2007, at another conference. There is a very strong protest from South African Union regarding China's export of textile in South Africa. Okay, then the Premier Wen Jiabao, when visiting South Africa, he said, "All right, we can cut the ratio of the export to South Africa." Then one of the South African scholars who attended the conference I was attending, he said, "That's not the issue. It's very good for your prime minister, for your premier to cut the ratio. But when China cut the ratio, the textile from Bangladesh, from Malaysia, from Vietnam to come. So that's our problem. We have to upgrade our textile industry." And this, and also, I think in 2005, I don't know whether some of you know, in the capital of Senegal, one day there was a demonstration against China's presence in Senegal because some, shops, some the industries declined. But the next day there was a demonstration to support China's presence in Senegal because provide the cheap products and for the poor. So that's a very controversial and also different response from the African community. And for the land grab issue, I think there is a very large rumor regarding China's buying. I don't know Indians deal, but actually there was in 1998 the Sudanese government asked China to migrate 10 million Chinese And Tuen said, you can, land here, you can, provide us with rice and you can solve your own problem. But the Chinese government is very cautious, so declined the offer. And now still there is, I think there is an article written by an Indian scholar and a Chinese scholar in English. It's called 5 Myths of China-Indian role in Africa. I think you can search from. There are 5 myths regarding this. And also for China's how is the cooperation or exploitation. We now emphasize so-called win-win. And look at Sudan. Used to be an oil importing country, but I think about about 15 years cooperation with China and other developing countries. Now it becomes an oil exporting country and developed the whole oil industry from exploration and production and refining. And look at Nigeria. The Shell and other Western oil company have been existing there for half a century, but still it's an oil importing country. Nigeria, such a big oil producing country, but it's still import oil. So that's a big contrast. And also, I think, again, here in the conference I mentioned in 2007, the Nigerian General Counsel in Hong Kong said in a luncheon speech, he said, we just want to do business with China, okay? Why? Because if there is any problem, we can sit down and discuss it equally. We don't have this position with Western countries. And the same thing, if you look at the Financial Times, the president of Senegal published a small article. The West should preach what they should do what they preach, or something like that. And they said we asked for financial support from World Bank, from IMF, but several years passed and no reaction. But when I mentioned this to Hu Jintao, he said, okay, then it's done. And we imported a lot of, yes, it's cheap, the cheap textiles. Then our women set up the textile club and they become employed. So there are some quite, really some difference between the two types of, and of course I think I have other things, but I would like to leave more time for my colleagues. All right, and there are some problems, and owing to a lot of, for example, China is just recently engaged in this kind of international cooperation, and in the year before, the 68 Chinese state-owned companies held a conference on social corporate social responsibility, and the government realized this and they're trying to make it more, but now the free market principle also the government has not the full control of the companies. So that's a problem I think that we are going to face. And for my view, in terms of China-African relations, more problem, better. Why I say that? Because no contact, no problem. The deeper contact and the broader contact, more problem. The key issue is that China and Africa, at least in on the government level, we each other its equal position, and also with a full cock frame can discuss that. So one problem settled, the cooperation further step. Thank you.
I'll begin with Professor Wen's question about way out. I think we need ways out of two sets of things. One is how do we get out of the specific of a globalized, militarized security system that, as I tried to say in the presentation, but explain more fully in my paper, that is not just gendered, but also ethnicized, etc. It's very regional specific. I think you can talk about these issues as they occur in places like Colombia, Cambodia, the U.S.-Mexico border. Some of these issues are very similar. And many people have argued very convincingly the relationship between militarism and capitalism being two sides of the same coin. That global capitalism really is almost impossible to have without military sort of securing markets, etc. So that's one, how do we think about way out of that kind of a globalized security system? And here, it's also important to take into account that institutions that are have been created to help demilitarize and demobilize, like the UN, for example, have also been perpetrators of violence, particularly against women, and have been involved in trafficking and all those kinds of things. So there's that set of problems that we really need to think about. And I would like us to consider what Jorge Santiago talked about yesterday about his idea about autonomy and acting locally and networking globally. And when Professor Lee mentioned oil production in Nigeria, I think you can have a discussion at the global level about that oil production, but when you bring it to the local level and see how that oil is produced and how it impacts women's livelihoods, local livelihoods. And when I was in the Niger Delta this summer, the women's groups we met with said, we wish oil had never been discovered. So how do we have that kind of global conversation that is theoretical, abstract, and putting together with the local impacts? And I think that's the second place we need to figure out a way out of. The kind of parallel conversations that seem to happen, and I think has happened here as well, where certain groups of people are talking about certain sets of things as if they're not connected. And a lot of the practical projects that have been discussed, right, seem separate from a lot of the abstract theorization that's happened. So the other place that we need to get out of, I think, are these parallel conversations. And how do we, put the grand theories, the macro theories, the global theories together with the practical impacts that ordinary people are facing here in China, in the countries I discussed, and all the other countries that have been discussed. And also in that context, thinking about kind of a northernization of the South and a southernization of the North, looking at those processes. And how do we examine those as well as we continue to have the dialogues?
I hope I'll be
able to cover at least some of the questions I've got, and these are for sure because of lack of time I have. But anyway, about the security issue. I think most of you do not know exactly the significance of Egypt in this region. Egypt is a central country in this region from the point of view of the geostrategic plans of the United States. It's not any country. It's not Tunisia, it's not Yemen, and this is something very special. And I can talk hours about this, but I'm just mentioning it now. And therefore, I think the United States have a very special policy towards Egypt, not exactly the same like towards other countries of the region. Because of that, Egypt is playing the keystone role in these geostrategic plans, especially the military ones of them. Therefore, the United States would tolerate whatever movement or change could happen in any other country of the region, but not in Egypt. And I can mention some about some information about the policies of the United States towards this. About the elections, the other question. I think I have prognosed the result of the becoming elections at least half a year ago. Half a year ago, I have exactly said how much percent every political power will get in these elections, and although we still did not have the election done yet, because they will continue until the next month at least, but the results now are more or less clear. We shall have about 40% of the Islamic bloc and about 30% of the Mubarak bloc, and about perhaps 20% or 15% of the liberal conservative party spectrum, and perhaps 8 or 7% for the nationalists, and the left would gain between 3 and 4% maximum. And then I could come now to the question of Ibrima. If the left was